now let's set up the staging of our scene. So it's not too interesting right now. You know, we're framing everything in the scene. We're seeing the ball bounce up and down. So, you know, if you're into cinematography, or if you're an illustrator into composition, you'll know that this is kind of, you know, if you look at per frame, this is all altogether kind of uninteresting. So what you're going to want to do is set up a camera for this scene. Now, so far I've been working in the default window here, the perspective, and you know, also this grid here still could be sized down a little bit more, right? My overall plane, just to kind of, so I have a scene where this kind of fits more into the whole idea of the bouncing ball. And you can see now it kind of bounces and goes off. I've kind of cut the frames off there, so if you wanted to make a longer animation you can, but right now for the purpose of this tutorial I'm going to end it there, so I'm not really dragging on the animation process, since this is just kind of overall setting up a scene for animation and rendering. So let's take a look. We've only got a single source light in here right now. We've got the ball, we've got the plane, so overall pretty simple. It won't take too long to render. So the next thing we really want to do is set up another camera so that we can follow the ball along and not have to see this kind of plain view of the whole thing. So remember, it's not important to frame the entire animation. You know, if the ball pops out of frame or things like that, you know, that's perfectly okay. But it's up to you as sort of the creative or director, or however you want to see yourself when you're creating this animation, or even the animator, how you want to frame the ball in the scene. So let's go ahead and create another camera. So if we go into the create menu, we're going to create a camera. And so notice how it just plops it in the middle of the scene there. Sort of a clumsy way to have the camera, right? And so, you know, we don't really want to really have a camera right in the center of the scene. So we'll pull it out and move it out closer to the view where the other camera is. So right now I'm not seeing through this camera, so that means I want to switch my view. So if I go into my panels here and I go to perspective, you'll see I've created this new camera called camera 1. Okay, so there's my view, and you know, you can move this around the same way you did with the perspective view. So you're going to want to kind of frame your content in your animation and see how it goes. But you're not stuck with this view, right? I don't have to be stuck with this view for the entire animation. I might want to change this a little bit. So let's say in the beginning I want my camera to do kind of just really kind of frame the ball a little bit more. So I'll zoom in here and maybe lower the view a little bit and move it. So I'm just kind of rotating and tracking and, you know, doing all the things with the middle and right and left mouse button to kind of frame this guy in there. So you notice how he kind of pops off the view. And what I'm going to do now is just a basic pan. So a pan with a camera is when you sort of stand at a fixed position and you angle the camera towards a specific viewpoint or a specific object. So what I want to do is really keyframe the camera. And in order to do that, I have to select the camera. So if I go to View, Select Camera, I'm going to hit S now. So I'm okay with this first frame now. I like it. And I'm going to hit S. And so now notice I made a little red keyframe there. And so now I'm going to maybe create, so I'll create maybe just 3 keys for this whole thing. You don't have to set up a whole lot of keys for a camera, because then you're going to get a very nauseating experience if there's too much movement in the camera, just like with a handheld shot if you're hitting a bunch of bumps. But obviously you can do that, right? You can do that if you want that effect, right? So I'm just, for the purpose of making this simple, I'm just kind of following the ball along, and I'm going to end it at the end frame here. So I made a keyframe at the beginning and made another one right here. And you can use your auto keyframe right here. So I have auto keyframe turned on, right? And then I go to the end. And if I move my camera again, so notice with auto keyframe, it automatically set a keyframe. I can hit the S as well. If I want to zoom in a little bit, I can too. So I can reposition the camera. And then when I go back, I can kind of play this whole thing and see how my camera works. And of course, I can also go ahead and do a play blast. And then I can bring that, you know, as a previs, I can bring this into After Effects or Premiere or Final Cut or whatever. I want just to kind of have my first view of the animation in a sequence without having to go through the render process.